Hey guys, and welcome back to my Tony predictions video. Tony Awards are in 2 days, and this is probably the most competitive and unpredictable Tony Awards season we have gotten in years. Now, some of you wanted me to make a prediction video, so I decided I'm gonna make it. And you know, this year I thought wasn't competitive at all. I think Illinois stole the show and should win all the awards, but that's unlikely to happen. So I'm basically going to be giving what I want to win, then what I think is probably most realistically gonna win, and then my why behind why I think certain things are gonna win. So let's get into it. Best Musical. So as you know, Best Musical is probably the most unknown, tightest category in the entire history category. I said that twice. Sorry, it's early. So for Best Musical, you have Hell's Kitchen, Illinois, The Outsiders, Suffs, and Water for Elephants. Immediately, Water for Elephants is not competitive in the slightest. It would be funny if it won because everybody hates it, and I think it'd just be a funny thing. It's not gonna happen, but it would be very funny. And it would make sense because this season has been full of surprises and twists and turns and last-minute musicals. I'm looking at you, Illinois. So yeah, I think that Water for Elephants is just not in the competition. The only one that liked it was the New York Times. Every other critic was kind of meh on it. So I don't think it's very much in the conversation at all. I don't think we have to be concerned about that. And then we get to the core four, which is Hell's Kitchen, Illinois, The Outsiders, and Suffs. Now, based off of various reporting that people have done in news articles, from The Hollywood Reporter to Deadline to Variety, all of these things, they've used math, they've talked to Tony voters, all of these things. You know, the main consistent theme that's been coming up for Best Musical is Hell's Kitchen, Suffs, and surprisingly The Outsiders. In the New York Times article, when they surveyed Tony voters, they were actually gonna, a lot of them were voting for The Outsiders over Hell's Kitchen. Now, I'm gonna tell you why Hell's Kitchen, here's the thing, Hell's Kitchen can 100% win Best Musical. It has got the momentum, it's had a great marketing campaign for the Tony Awards. For some reason, a lot of people seem to really like it, even though I'm like, it's kind of meh. And a lot of audiences I know hate the musical and think the book is objectively bad, or not objectively bad, but that's just what Matt Koplik says. Shout out to you, Matt. But I think Hell's Kitchen is least likely to win Best Musical for a couple of core fundamental points. One, a jukebox musical has only won once, in 2006 for Jersey Boys. So in the past 24 years, it's only won one time. We don't count Moulin Rouge because that was during COVID, so that doesn't necessarily count, and all of the musicals were jukebox musicals. But the second point is that Best Musical historically has not gone to the big splashy musical. Everyone said Tootsie might win over Hadestown. Some people thought MJ would beat Kimberly Akimbo. People said Some Like It Hot was gonna beat Akimbo, and MJ was gonna be A Strange Loop, and none of that happened. And yes, I know that the tour voters are very essential to the voting committee, and they make up, I think, 15% of it. But historically, they have not been a huge component, a huge part of the Tony Awards deciding a winner. You know, they make up a very small portion. So while everyone's saying, like, oh, like Hell's Kitchen winning Best Musical and it will sell amazing on the road, it would sell very good without having a Best Musical win or even nomination. This musical has gone above and beyond all expectations, even without any Tony noms. Well, actually, I will say, I think without any Tony noms, I don't think they'd be doing as good, but I think they'd be doing $1 million plus. And Hell's Kitchen does not need to win Best Musical in order to sustain its ginormous box office. So one is because it's a jukebox musical. Two, because historically, if we're looking at the past and how trends have happened, the smaller show tends to win every time, which is why Hell's Kitchen, in my opinion, is actually the most unlikely choice here. But again, because of the momentum and because a lot of Tony voters are on Hell's Kitchen, and the math from The Hollywood Reporter has done that and said Hell's Kitchen's gonna win, you know, I gotta go and say that Hell's Kitchen still has a very viable chance to beat the smaller musicals. But again, I think that Hell's Kitchen will in fact lose this. I think that I also think that Tony voters might get turned off by the fact that it's doing so well at the box office that I think at this point, because I know voting closes on Thursday or Friday, so they definitely had as much as late this week to decide. So I think that we'll see. But I think Hell's Kitchen is definitely in the competitive area. Then we have The Outsiders, which, when that boils down to is that many people say it is gotten the art and the entertainment side of it and combine the two, and it's made a piece of art. Even though people are divided on the score for The Outsiders. Now again, The Outsiders got a mixed response from critics. Audiences seemed to be pretty into it, but there were some audience members that didn't love it. I personally had The Outsiders not anywhere near a top contender for a musical. But looking at that New York Times article and seeing that voters are going towards The Outsiders is a very interesting choice that I wouldn't see coming, but it makes sense. I think the two big things, the big two shows that have had the momentum is Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders. Because before Hell's Kitchen, The Outsiders kind of appeared as the front runner for Best Musical, even though there's never been a clear front runner, even though I think it's always been Illinois, but I'm going to get to why that's not probable. And then Illinois never seemed to catch on with people. And then obviously Suffs and Water for Elephants have also just kind of been there. But it seems like Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders are the two musicals that are most likely to win. Again, I can't give you a firm this one show is going to win, but I can say that those two shows are probably what's going to win. And I think The Outsiders might pull the upset. I think that, again, it's not a jukebox musical. It has an original score, and I think that the Tony Committee wants to give the biggest award to, if not to a original musical, to a musical that has original music. Now, having said that, if we look at the trends, the only show that's most of the time, movie musicals don't win Best Musical. There have been a few times in the beginning 2000s with Hairspray, Thoroughly Modern Millie, Spamalot, The Producers. But what I'll say, and so you might think, well, okay, The Outsiders has a fair shot because those are all very popular movies, and they are popular films. But a lot of those movies were cult films, except maybe not Thoroughly Modern Millie, But all of that is to say, those musicals, aside from Spamalot, became very well known because of the musicals and not because of the original films. And The Outsiders as a brand is much bigger than any of those shows. So could the brand of The Outsiders, because everyone knows The Outsiders, all people, I didn't read the book in middle school, but lots of people have. So it's a very popular brand. But again, could that popularity be a little bit too much? Because it's making good money. And even if it doesn't win Best Musical, it's going to do fine. So that's kind of, I think, where I'm at for Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders. I think those are the two shows that are battling it out. I'd give the edge to The Outsiders. And it seems like Tony voters are doing the same thing. And then when we get to Illinois, a show that I think should win Best Musical, I think it can. I'm manifesting that it will, but I've come to the acceptance that it's not going to happen most likely, because most people are saying that it's not even being considered because most of the voters don't consider it to be a musical, which I think is total, just utter stupidity. It is a musical through and through. It is not an American Utopia special. It's not a dance piece. It's not a special event. It is a musical. It has a book. It has characters. It has a character arc. It is, yes, there's a couple of anthology stories, but there is one core story. And on top of that, there is music being played in real time and people singing. It's 100% a musical. It's a different kind of musical, and because it's in that gray area, I do think that might stop it from winning Best Musical. I think if Illinois was a original piece, it would no doubt win Best Musical. I also think it being a limited engagement is also hurting its chances, because it's not doing amazing at the box office, but the Tony voters won't feel upset because, they'll be like, it's going to close anyway, so why bother giving one of the biggest awards that helps shows get better box office to the limited engagement. And it is interesting that when Illinois was coming, before it was on Broadway, it was labeled as a new kind of musical, and then they switched it to a new musical, which was very clever on their part, because it is a new kind of musical, a new kind of gray area that is hard to define. But again, I think we need to expand our horizons and our thinking when it comes to what a musical is. But I think the black and white boxes are preventing Illinois from winning. I also think that they haven't been campaigning as hard as they should, but it is very much the kind of show that the Tony Awards give the win to. It's a very artsy show. It's very small. It's very quiet in a lot of aspects. And while it is based off of a popular album, I wouldn't even consider it a jukebox musical. I mean, it is technically, but it isn't. Also, it's much more sophisticated and classier than that. So I feel like that gives it the edge. Where I wouldn't necessarily call Illinois a jukebox musical, and that would make me a bit hypocritical, because I just said Hell's Kitchen, which is a jukebox musical, which has an original story, has less of a chance. But again, I think Illinois has that prestige and that artiness that all other jukebox musicals have failed to cultivate. But yeah, I think Illinois is unlikely to, and I think the big thing that I'm thinking is I think it's going to be between Illinois and Suffs. That could also be a potential two-way battle it out, because Suffs is another smaller, quieter, not as artsy, but a much more smaller show that doesn't have any big stars, that's based off of the suffragette movement, that's very political and award and the Tonys, the Oscars, the Emmys, they love giving political points to shows like Suffs. And again, it needs a Best Musical win to, I think, get it to very substantial, solid numbers in the summer, at least. And that's why I think Suffs has a better chance than Illinois, because it's not a limited engagement. And I think there's been a lot of love for Illinois and Suffs from both critics and audiences. I think every other show has been very divisive, or it's been critics hate it, audiences love it, or vice versa. But with Illinois and Suffs, those two are the most acclaimed shows overall. So I think that Illinois and Suffs you would consider upsets, but I think there's a very strong chance that these two could win. But if we're looking at it from what everyone else is saying, from looking at the Tonys surveys and looking at the people that have that are voting, it seems like it's going to be a battle between Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders. So, again, Best Musical is going to be an edge on your seat. And again, there's going to be upsets on Sunday, guys. It's just going to happen. And I think Best Musical might be one of them. I hope so, because I need Illinois to win. But if it doesn't, I've accepted it. I've accepted it. But yes, so that is the Best Musical spiel. And it is definitely going to be, I'd say it's the tightest it's ever been, ever. And again, Illinois has had a precedent, Contact, which was a dance piece, which you could very much not consider a musical, won back in 2000. So there is precedent for jukebox musicals, for movie musicals, for dance pieces winning. But again, if we're looking at the trends from the past couple of years, the smaller shows tend to win. And I think they're going to continue to stick with that, even though I think the Best Musical wins for Strange Loop and Akimbo honestly didn't help them that much. And maybe the Tonys might say, well, that didn't work, so let's maybe just go for the better show, or for the bigger show. But I just feel like that would be such a drastic switch up after, I'd say 13, 14 years of, the consistently smaller show winning. And I think that's something that people are failing to remember when they're talking about who could win Best Musical. So now we're going to get on to the next awards. Best Revival of a Musical, Merrily. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then what you've been doing. I think that's pretty crystal clear that it's going to win Best Revival of a Musical. It is the Hamilton of this season, And if it was a original musical, it would win everything. Best performance by a leading actor, Jonathan Groff is the contender. The only one that could pull an upset is Brian Darcy James. I would love for Brian to win, but I think Jonathan's portrayal of Franklin Shepard and him being able to simultaneously make you hate him and cry for him is genius acting, and he deserves the win, and he's gonna win. Leading actress in a musical is very tight. It's between Kelly O'Hara and Malaya Joy Moon for Hell's Kitchen. I'm going with Malaya Joy Moon just because I feel like that's where the buzz is at, and I think Hell's Kitchen is gonna win at least one or two major, Tonys. But Kelly could pull the upset. I think she deserves to win. It's a very tight race. It's like 50-50. It's either one, and I think that's the conclusion. I can't give a definitive answer. I feel like the buzz is with Malaya Joy Moon, and a show that's closed has a lesser chance of winning. But I feel like Days of Wine and Roses has to get some kind of recognition, and I think Hell's Kitchen could get that recognition in another category as well. Put it this way. I think... You know what? I'm going to just say this now. I think this is Kelly's to lose. I think Malaya Joy Moon's going to win. I think this is Malaya's to win. And I think Lindsay's going to win for featured actor. I just think because there's no way that the three merrily aren't going to all win. So I think I'm going to just say Malaya. Malaya Joy Moon's going to pull an upset. But it's not an upset. It's close, and I could be wrong. Best performance by a featured actor and featured actress. Again, I think this is Daniel and Lindsay's to win. Even though Lindsay's been out a lot, I think that it's. I mean, Daniel, in my opinion, I think. Personally, I wish that they had nominated Paul Alexander Nolan. I thought he should have won, honestly. Or Ben Cook for Illinois. I think that was such a shame that they got snubbed. Also, George for Lempicka. I think featured actress, again, I think this is Lindsay's to win. Keisha Lewis could win. She's been winning a lot of the awards, but I don't think that's going to happen. But again, there could be an upset. It's a tight race. Direction at Marie Freeman Merrily. Again, I think the only possible upset is Dania Tamor for The Outsiders, because the direction of that show has been heavily praised. But again, I think Maria and Jonathan have been seen as the two things that make this production as amazing as it is, and so I feel like obviously they're going to win for those two categories. Book and score are like, who knows? For book, and I'm not going through like all of the names of all of the different nominations, but I'll put it up there so you can see who's nominated. I'm just kind of for time. For Best Book, Hell's Kitchen, The Notebook, The Outsiders, Suffs, Water for Elephants. Water for Elephants and The Notebook are not winning. Water for Elephants had a decent book. The Notebook was horrible, in my opinion. I think Hell's Kitchen, everyone has seen as the weakest part of that show, so I don't think it's going to win. So I think this is a tight race between a tight, fight between The Outsiders and Suffs. I'm gonna lean towards Suffs because I think that book probably is Suffs' best chance at winning a major award, but The Outsiders could win. It's 50-50, so it's either The Outsiders or Suffs. I'm leaning more towards Suffs. I think personally book, score, and musical are all going to be different. I don't think it's going to be book and musical or like a threesome of those. It could be 100%. It could be book, Outsiders, musical, Suffs, or book and musical and score, Suffs, or The Outsiders. It could be any of those combinations, but I'm just going to go with Suffs. I personally think Illinois should have been put in this category. I think that and Days of Wine and Roses were the best books, but I know that Days of Wine and Roses was not heavily appreciated by the community, as I've heard. But again, Illinois, in my opinion, was the best book. And people can argue there wasn't a book, but there was. But anyways. And again, the nominating committee and the voting body are two different, people. So again, it makes sense that the people that are going to actually, make the decisions about who's going to win are going to have a lot of momentum behind the nominations. But even in the nominations, it didn't get best book. So it was whack. Best score, Days of Wine and Roses, Here Lies Love, Stereophonic, Suffs, and The Outsiders. I think this is going to be there's going to be an upset in one of the major categories, and I think score is either going to go to Days of Wine and Roses or Here Lies Love. I think those are by far the two strongest scores. Days should win this award, but if I'm being honest, and if I'm looking at like what is anticipated, truly, it seems like this is a threesome, not in a sexual way, between Stereophonic, Suffs, and The Outsiders, because Suffs' score has been heavily praised. The Outsiders' score is kind of seen as the weak link of the show, but it's still in there. And Stereophonic seems to be the score that everyone's gone gaga over. I personally feel like this could be another Contact situation or something where it's like Stereophonic. If they performed a full song in the play, I'd be like, cool. But they don't perform a full song in the play, and that makes it seem unfair to all of the musicals that got nominated, especially ones that are deserving of it. So I hope Stereophonic does not win, but it could. It 100% could. But I think, again, Score and Book could be anyone's guess. It could easily go to Water for Elephants and stinking, like, The Outsiders. You know, like, it's those two categories are, like, tight. Too close to call, could be anyone's guess, but those are just kind of the trying to, you know, smallify. That's not a word. Smallify them. I know that's not a word, but I create words. I'm a wordsmith. Call me Word Race. Get it? No? Okay. For Best Scenic Design, I think this is either gonna. So we have The Outsiders, Hell's Kitchen, Water for Elephants, Here Lies Love, Back to the Future, Lampica, which I actually liked. It's not gonna win, and Cabaret. This is a 50-50 between Here Lies Love and Cabaret. I want Here Lies Love to win, but I think because Cabaret is still going on, it's going to win. But Here Lies Love could pull an upset. Best Costume Design, that's an interesting one because Hell's Kitchen, The Great Gatsby, Water for Elephants, Cabaret, and Suffs all are nominated. I think personally Suffs could take it because of the period costuming, but a lot of buzz has grown for Cabaret, so I think it's between those two. For a minute, I think everyone thought Great Gatsby, but that seems to have fallen off. Lighting Design, Illinois, Water for Elephants, Cabaret, Hell's Kitchen, The Outsiders. I think Outsiders is going to win for that, like, rumble sequence. I personally would give it to Illinois. That lighting is so beautiful. Water for Elephants has a very cool moment at the end of the show, seen here, but I don't think that's enough to get it to win. Cabaret could win, but I think this is The Outsiders to win. Sound Design, I think it's going to be The Outsiders. And if we're honest, Here Lies Love and Merrily's sound system or mixing was kind of mixed for me. I didn't see Cabaret, and I didn't see Hell's Kitchen. Choreography, it's going to go to Illinois. It's obvious. I think Kamala A. Brown could pull an upset for Hell's Kitchen. Water for Elephants could sneak in there. The Outsiders could also sneak in there. Here Lies Love isn't really a competitor. But again, I think that most likely it's going to be Justin Peck, but there could be an upset. And then for orchestrations, there's Hell's Kitchen, Stereophonic, The Outsiders, Merrily, and Illinois. There could be an upset for Illinois here. I think Merrily is going to win. I want it to win, but Stereophonic could win this award too. So overall, those are my thoughts, my predictions on the Tony Awards. So just to recap all of that, Best Musical I think is most likely going to either be Hell's Kitchen or The Outsiders, with Illinois and Suffs being the potential upsets, and you shouldn't be surprised if one of those two win. For Best Revival, Merrily, leading actor Jonathan Groff, leading actress, I think it's going to be Malaya Joy Moon, but that's not definitive. Could be Kelly. For featured actor Daniel, featured actress Lindsay, but Keisha could pull an upset. Direction Maria, but an upset for Outsiders, but not likely. Book, I think that's between The Outsiders and Suffs. Score should be Days of Wine and Roses and Here Lies Love. I think that could be the upset, but most likely it's between Stereophonic, Suffs, and The Outsiders, with the biggest edge probably to Stereophonic and Suffs. Scenic Design, it's going to be Cabaret. Costume, I think Suffs, but any one of those shows, Cabaret could win. Lighting Design, probably Lighting and Sound, Outsiders, but there could be upsets in lighting for Illinois or Cabaret. Choreography, Justin Peck, but there could be an upset for Hell's Kitchen or The Outsiders, or Water for Elephants. And Orchestrations is most likely Merrily, but it could go to Illinois or Hell's Kitchen. So overall, those are my predictions. Those are my thoughts. This is going to be a crazy night, and there's going to be some surefire wins, and I think there's going to be at least 2 upsets. I predict at least 2 upsets that are going to make people go, what? Whoa, no. There's just no way it's going to play out like Hell's Kitchen is going to win Best Musical. Like, it's just not going to be a surefire night at all. So prepare yourselves. It's going to be an edge on your seat ceremony. I'm super excited for it. I am sending all of my manifestations and hope that Illinois pulls it off and that the Here Lies Love and Days of Wine and Roses all get the love and recognition they deserve. But yeah, we'll see you guys on sometime next week for my reaction video of the Tony Awards. Yeah, and I'll film some of my reactions. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.